Hi guys, welcome to an interesting video on Wild Rift. So today we're back with patch 2.3a review. So, haven't been making videos for some time because I've been working on this new series called the Meta Recap, and I've already recorded the first 3 episodes of it, and I mainly base it off patch 2.3 when I compare some champions. But the first episode will probably release either about the same time as this video or a little bit after. But without further ado, let's quickly jump into the patch notes for patch 2.3a. So this is a relatively small patch, but looks like it's going to impact the meta quite a bit because the changes are quite substantial. So first up, before we get into the actual game changes, let's go for the skins. So the pool party, 6 pool party skins are going to be released. So this is of course a summer or beach themed skin lineup. So it's really popular in PC, so it's finally coming over to the Wild Rift. And also very popular is Galaxy Slayer Z, which is probably going to be a legendary skin. Really nice Z skin. And here some pool party emotes and icons. Probably gonna have an accompanying event, because a lot of the skin lineups have an accompanying event, like KDA or Stargazer. So probably there's gonna be an event. Oh, actually there is. So right as I mentioned it, there is a pool party event on June 17th. Alright, so first up, champion changes. Ahri has a 5 base armor nerf. I don't really think this matters too much. Majority of her lane matchups in the mid lane are AP anyways, so this probably doesn't hurt her too much, at least for the laning phase. Of course, in the later part of the game, in team fights and all, it will of course impact her a bit, but I don't feel like Ahri is a top tier pick. Like, she is not bad, but she's not the best either, so not really sure why there was a need to nerf her armor, but probably not going to affect her too much. What is going to affect the champion though is the Evelynn change. Now this is a really huge Evelynn change, and I really like this nerf. Assuming that you want Evelynn to be nerfed, this is probably the best way to do it. So previously we had the nerf to her ult cooldown. It didn't affect her too much, maybe her snowball a little bit. Then we had the nerf on her hate spikes damage, which was 5 damage per hate spike. So 10 damage in every cast since you cast hit spikes twice, which honestly didn't affect her too much, but this is definitely going to affect her a lot. So the 250% execute damage now only applies to champions. So as we all know, when champions are low, they have a mark on them wherein Evelynn can execute them. And what has been happening in a lot of Evelynn jungle games, especially when you're against the Evelynn jungle can flash over the wall or blast code over the wall into the dragon pit or into the baron pit. And let's say the dragon is at like 2,000 health. Even on level 15, your smite is only going to do 1,000 health. Evelynn goes in, it's about 2,000 health. She presses her ultimate and she steals the dragon, and her ultimate brings her out of the pit. So she essentially gets free steals, just off no cost. The cost is basically just using her ultimate for stealing objectives instead of killing champions. But logically you would rather steal the baron than use it to, let's say, kill one enemy champion. It's way more worth. So now that Evelynn cannot do 250% execute damage to monsters like Baron, Elder, and just dragons or Rift Herald or whatnot, it's probably going to hit her quite hard, because that's one of the best parts about Evelynn. Playing against Evelynn is really irritating because you have to respect Evelynn's ultimate and only do the objective if 1, she's dead, or 2, she has already used ultimate. So this should lower Evelynn's power levels quite significantly, possibly drop her down a tier or 2 in the tier list. Now we have Janna, who's finally caught a nerf. So Janna, as I have been saying in my past like 2 or 3 tier lists, I believe Janna is the best support at the moment, and mostly Jannas do max her W, which is a Zephyr. Either that or you max your E, but maxing W is more common just for the poke and to be a little bit more oppressive in lane. So what they're doing is that they're lowering the damage of her W by like 10 at base level and 40 at max level. So this will hurt her damage and her poking capabilities quite a bit, but I'm not so sure that it's going to really make her not the best support, because the good parts about Janna is not only her poke, but also her denial with her ultimate and her Q. So those are the best parts of Janna, and followed by this W poke, of course. So I have actually got a Janna complete guide up, so you guys can check that out if you want to know more about Janna, but I don't think that this change will affect it too much. Now we got another Katarina nerf, which is great. So last time they tried to nerf her passive, and it didn't really do too much. I didn't really see any changes after that nerf, but now they're gonna nerf Katarina again. So first up, her passive, her Veracity, which is the dagger spin. Her AP ratio is going down from 0.58 all the way to 0.1, down to 0.48. Sorry, that was 0.58. Did I say 4? I'm not sure. So it's going down to 0.48 to 0.9. Now, honestly, this seems like a pretty minor nerf because it's going down by 0.1 at all levels. But 0.1 is something. It's about 10% of her AP ratio deducted. So it could actually, make a difference, but we'll have to see on the patch. Now, this is a change that I'm really unsure about how hard it will really impact the champion, because while 0.1 is not a large amount, it's not a small amount either. So we'll have to really see when going up against Katarina on how it really affects Katarina. And another change they tried to make to her is her ultimate. So now Katarina's base movement speed is set to 125 when spinning, instead of being treated as a slow that could reduce its slow resistance. Now, why was this a thing? It's because of two runes. Firstly was the Old Spirit Walker. With the Old Spirit Walker, you gain a bit of slow resistance, and it actually helped her move quickly during her ultimate. And now we have the Phase Rush. So you can actually proc Phase Rush before going into your ultimate. So you jump, you Q, you jump in, you W, and you ult, and then you would have proc Phase Rush off, Shinpoing in and throwing out her two daggers. You would have proc Phase Rush, which allows her to zoom around with her ultimate and also pick up the daggers that you have left on the ground. Although I would say that most Katarinas don't take Phase Rush, but it is something that you can do. So this honestly is not going to affect Katarina too much, because most Katarina players don't actually play around having a slow resistance on the ultimate anyway, so this probably is not going to affect Katarina all that much at all, in my opinion. So next up we have the Leona change, which is her Zenith Blade, which is her E. Range is going up from 7.5 all the way up to 8. This is the second range buff that she received. I believe last time it was 6 to 7.5, now it's 7.5 to 8. So they have been buffing Leona, like, I believe this is the 4th buff she has received, and she has never gotten nerfed. So they're really trying to make Leona meta, is what I'm trying to say. And Leona is really meta in League PC because of the fact that she's a tanky engaged support, but on the Wild Rift, she's not as tanky, although her engage is still really potent. But most people prefer other engaged champions like Alistar, who's actually tanky, although his engage is really short and predictable. But Alistar has been more popular than Leona this entire time. So this change would definitely help her out. A range increase is always going to help out. So it's definitely going to help her out, but we'll see if it changes her position in the meta. Next, we have Fukang, who has a 50 to 80% increase to his heal on his Q when used on minions. So this shows that they're really trying to make lane Wukong a thing. Wukong is a lot more popular in the jungle, so they're really trying to make lane Wukong viable, which it isn't really too viable at the moment. So that's what they're trying to do, because of his weak lane phase, so we'll see if it helps. I believe it will help his lane sustain significantly, but he doesn't really have the best matchups in Baron lane at the moment, so we'll have to see. Next, we have Xinyan, who has base stat increases. So his magic resist going from 30 to 39, and his health gain per level going up by 10 per level, which makes his total health increase from 2120 up to 2260. So the health change is not very significant. His magic resist change, not very significant, considering armor is more important for clearing in the jungle. So altogether, probably not a huge change, just a very minor change. Probably going to help Xinyan a little bit, but not too much. Next, we have item changes. This is probably, aside from like Katarina and Evelyn changes, item changes are probably the bigger changes. Actually, not technically not items, but it's the jungle changes. We'll get to that. So first up is Bami Cinder and Sunfire Aegis, doing now only 25% damage to minion and monsters instead of 50%. Now I find this strange because I do recall that when Sunfire Aegis was released, they did say that the main purpose of this item was to actually help tanks clear waves, because the majority of tanks have very poor wave clear, which I do agree with. So this item was meant for them to clear waves with, but apparently they're nerfing the wave clearing ability, and instead, because most people end up using the Sunfire Aegis passive just for pure damage, like when they stand in the middle of the enemy team and the damage ramps up. So I guess they're just trying to hurt this item as a whole and not make it too strong, in the sense that it gives them tankiness, it gives them damage to enemies, and it also gives them wave clear. So they're hitting the wave clear aspect of it, which I can understand because Sunfire Aegis is probably the best tank item at the moment. So I do get it. And next up we have Winter's Approach. Mana granted going from 8 to 12. Honestly, no one uses this item at all because it takes way too long to ramp up. People still use the mana mule like on Corki and Ezreal, and like the Archangel's staff on champions like Orianna or sometimes Ziggs, but literally no tank builds Winter's Approach. Even tanks you think that might want it, like Malphite to reduce ultimate cooldown, doesn't actually take Winter's Approach. So we'll see if this change actually makes the item itself viable, because no one is using it. Ignite's range is going up, I should say, not going back up, from 5.5 to 6. It did get nerfed, I believe, from 7 or 8 range down to 5.5. So this is sort of slightly increasing the range again, so that it's better for longer range champions. Now, Smite has a pretty huge change, which is restoring 4 mana per second while in the jungle or the river. So this is a pretty huge change if you really think about it for mana-hungry junglers. Of course, on some junglers, it doesn't really matter at all because mana was never really an issue. But on some champions like Amumu and Olaf in particular, who are probably the two most mana-hungry junglers in existence, it is really going to help them, because while you're in the jungle or the river, basically while you're farming and not like actively ganking a lane or in a fight, you're going to restore 4 mana per second, and that is going to add up to a pretty significant amount, considering you're going to be walking from camp to camp, and standing around clearing camps. It's going to restore quite a bit of mana. So it's sort of like having a permanent blue buff on Smite, not blue buff, but sort of a diminished blue buff for mana. So this is really going to help out some junglers. So we could see some huge jungle changes, especially in conjunction with this. So I'm going to skip this for now. We're going to talk about the jungle changes first. So Grom's health is going down by 300, and the Krug's health going down from 600 to 500, and the huge Krug going down from 1600 to 1200. Now, this is because majority of junglers didn't take Grom and Krug, and I do completely agree with this. When I do jungle clears, I normally go buff one camp, which is either the Raptors or Wolf, to another buff, and then scuttle, and then into gank or into enemies' jungle camps. So what happens is most people like to take this route. For junglers that can clear faster, they go buff, Raptors, Wolves, buff, scuttle. Or if not, you can even go buff, Raptors, Wolves, scuttle, buff. Sort of like that. So no one really clears their own Krugs or their own Gromp on their first kill generally. So this change might actually change up the jungle pathing for a lot of junglers, which is why I say this patch is huge for jungle changes. But Krugs normally is only taken on the invade. So a very common route is after clearing your jungle and clearing the skull, you'll go to the enemy's Krugs and clear their Krugs while they'll go to your Krugs instead. So it's sort of like you're exchanging Krugs with the enemy. So it doesn't really matter too much in that aspect, but this change is really interesting and would really change up the jungle meta in conjunction with the Smite change. And finally, we have the Outer Tower Goal. They're basically redistributing how the goal is given out. So instead of getting 100 gold per plate on the outermost tower, you're getting 150 instead. And when the tower is destroyed, instead of the whole team getting 150 gold, the whole team gets 100 gold instead. So this is meant to sort of reward players who are winning their lane and pushing towers. So it sort of helps out like split pushes. It sort of helps out laners who are hard stomping their lane and can pick up tower plates or even get the entire tower down, and sort of like reduces the amount the team gets from getting a tower down on the other side of the map. So there is impact for this. So of course the teammate that's successful is going to get more successful. You're going to snowball more successfully. But on the flip side, if let's say you're playing weak side and you can't touch the tower at all, you're going to get less gold overall, and it'll become even harder for you. So this will be a change that will affect, what the meta is like and how the game goes. Because the goal distribution is, of course, important in the game. You always want the goals to be on your carries or whoever you need the goal to be on, and you don't really want to funnel the goal into someone that you don't need. So this it could be a good or a bad change depending on who you are and the state of the game. But it's as I said, for some changes it is equal for everybody in that sense. So it's probably not gonna be too big. Here we have some bug fix regarding champion points. I haven't really encountered this bug, so it's not too big for me, and I don't really know what this is about anyway. But that's it for the patch 2.3a update. Thanks for watching the video, guys, and